I polled the Counter-Strike community about which of the current CSGO maps they like the most. For this survey, I had people rate the current CSGO maps playable in competitive matchmaking from 1 to 5. Then, if they so desired, they could explain their answer with a written response below each rating. I ended up getting about 1,400 responses to this, which is pretty crazy. To be honest, the results are surprising. One thing that I noticed while I was making this video is that a lot of harder maps got a lot of written responses from people who didn't like a map because they didn't know how to play it. That's where this video's sponsor, Csgo comes in. Scope is a great way to improve at CS. It analyzes your matches and tells you where you need to improve. Plus, with their new pre-match system, you can win the match before it's even started. All you have to do is connect your Faceit account to Csgo. Then, during the warm-up timer, conveniently shown on the page, your opponents will automatically be connected and analyzed by Scope. The interface is very easy to use, and shows spots your opponents like to push, their favorite weapons, and even their playstyle. For instance, Csgo told me that this guy likes to hold from CT with an AWP, so I took a risky deagle peek and it paid off. Csgo, feel the game. Anyways, let's get right into the data. Coming in at number 14 on this list with an average rating of 2.542 is unsurprisingly Agency. Agency isn't really all that bad, but the hostage game mode is really flawed, and of the two hostage maps, Agency just kinda has less charm. This is reflected in the written responses, with one person saying that the map is 2 huge coverless boxes for the CTs to cross against 5 or 10 Ts all waiting with AWP. Another person came to the defense of Agency. They explained that Agency is brilliant for hostage and that there are 2 main areas which are always hotly contested each round, Boost and Heaven. These areas, when played optimally, are joystick control and play for both T and CT sides. I don't have a lot to say about Agency because I haven't played it enough to form a full opinion, and I think it's important to recognize that a lot of these lower ranked maps will be so low ranked because nobody really knows them. The second lowest ranked map exemplifies this perfectly. Breach, coming in with an average score of 2.581, only 0.039 points above Agency, is clearly the result of a lack of player base. And reading written responses from people who've actually played the map proves this. When reading more detailed explanations from people who've clearly invested some time into playing the map, it becomes clear that it deserves at least a bit of attention, with one player saying that this new version of Breach pretty much fixed everything that was wrong with the old version. Number 12 on this list is Office. Office, with an average score of 2.615, is an interesting case. It has the largest ratio of 1 out of 5s on this list, coming in at 33.7%. Despite this, it is not the lowest average scoring map. It also has the 6th highest ratio of 5 out of 5s, which is really funny to be honest. One person says that Office is a very linear map with way too many right angles, which is very much fair. Many people also commented on the amount of cheaters that play on Office. However, there were a few Office defenders, with one person saying that if you know how to play it as a team, it can be pretty deep and not so T-sided. Just outside the number 10, at number 11 is Anubis. Anubis is probably my favorite community map ever included in CSGO. The people do not agree, which is fair, although I am holding out that a large part of this is due to the breach factor of not having a lot of players. Anubis defenders say that its art style is beautiful, the layout is super interesting and dynamic, but also remains one of the most competitively viable maps I've ever played. And I agree, to be honest, but this isn't about my opinion, and a lot of the comments say that one side is clearly favored over the other one, and that mid feels pretty weird right now, which, to be honest, I also agree with. B is the superior site right now in my opinion, and while yes, knowing A utility does make it a lot more balanced, A site could use some work. Another person said, "Is that a dude behind the Watergate?" No, that was Richard Nixon. It is a bad day for people who like maps that start with A, first Anubis and now Ancient. I understand this a bit more, as Ancient is quite new and has a lot of things that just need fixing. The average score for Ancient was a 2.839. One person says that the map has too many cubbies, is too green, and layout-wise I don't like it. True. A somewhat rational centrist said that it is really unique and not CT-sided as much as Vertigo, but still not really balanced even with the cover on B site. Honestly, same. One person commented that Ancient is worse than Cache. This checks out as the map directly above Ancient is Tuscan. Average score of 3.108. Tuscan is the first map to have an average score of above a 3, which means that statistically we're now getting into maps that people like more than they dislike. Having a score this high for a map so new really shows how anticipated Tuscan was, and how well Cat Food delivered on the remake. Nonetheless, there are still non-believers, which is very fair as this Tuscan is not perfect yet. One response noted that the layout feels pretty suffocating on the T side and the CTs are able to encroach upon mid way too easily from 3 different directions. The same commenter made a point that I really agree with, which is that they should open up the skyboxes more. The general opinion on this map so far seems to be pretty good, and that means that Tuscan has a bright future. Just think of the community reception of other maps when they were added, Ancient for instance. Next up, coming in at number 8 is Train. This surprised me, to be honest, with how quickly people have dropped Train. One person mentioned that it feels weird to play. Trains everywhere, no mid, big open spaces, and close rooms right next to each other. Fell out of favor for a reason. Many negative responses mention these long angles, and I can definitely see that being a good reason for people disliking Train. Train believers mention the versatility of strategy on the map, calling it one of those maps where I feel like any strat is viable for either side. B-ramp can allow for pistols, SMGs, ARs, and heavy weapons to do heavy lifting, while scoped weapons can work taking out anyone that's pushing ramp or railing. I think that Train's actually in a pretty good spot in the middle of the list. Number 7, the first map in the top half of the list, is Vertigo. Vertigo ranking within the top half of the list is super unexpected for me, especially with it outplacing Train and Tuscan. It's strange that the CS community has come around on this map recently. I do agree that playing this map is super fun, even if I personally dislike watching it. One comment mentioned that the map feels small, it feels like there's always some action at some point, or the constant threat of being lurked by both sides. I agree with this a lot. I love lurking on Vertigo, it's a lot of fun. An anti-Vertigoer commented that this map is a ramp simulator and really CT-sided. You can really hear rotates, so just not good at all. This is also true. Vertigo is a really quirky map, so the general division of votes makes a lot of sense to me. We just had one of the stranger maps in CS with Vertigo at number 7. Number 6 is the exact opposite of that. Dust 2 is your 6th favorite map with an average score of 3.246. Despite being such a classic map, Dust 2 places lower than some of you might expect. I think that a large part of the CS community is very bored with Dust 2 right now, and that is reflected in the written responses. After 15 years of playing CS, it's boring as hell. Sums up a lot of what people think of Dust 2. However, one person said, it is the most common and overused maps I know, but it's my favorite because it's simple to understand and hard to master. A lot of people echoed this belief actually. One responder called themselves a self-admitted Dust 2 addict, and I think that echoes a lot of the people that still love Dust 2. We are in the top 5 now, the upper echelon of CS maps, and coming in at number 5 with an average score of 3.569 is Cash. Believe it or not, I think if you took this survey 3 or 4 years ago, Cash would be even higher. Cash reminds me of my favorite era of CS, old NA FPL with Tarek, Mo, Ocean, Stewie, and a lot of others. More than half of my favorite CS clips of all time are on Cash, and that definitely adds a lot to my love for this map.
Yo guys, can you please hold A without the... Did you do the boost? Let me check the bodies. 100% there's a boost here, look, 100%, look! There's blood on both walls! You guys stop boosting! Stop it! We're trying to win! God damn it, dude. JDM, there it is. Good job, boys. Keep it up. I can't do this. The evidence is... I can't do this.
One responder clearly echoes my love for Cash, calling it the perfect middle ground between balance and competitive viability and unique design, also saying that it remains fun and fresh while avoiding the pitfalls of maps based purely on gimmick designs. I agree with this. A lot of the negative comments mention that they really didn't like the rework of this map, and I can see that point also. One person said, ever since the update it just hasn't been the same. I know the update didn't change much of anything, but it just doesn't feel right. And I can understand that point of view. The old Cache did have a special, weird, extra factor to it that I don't really understand, although that might just be nostalgia talking. Number 4, with a staggering .008 average points higher than Cache, beating it out by less than 15 total points, is Overpass. Overpass is a very balanced map and has gone through many changes to get to the point that it is. I don't really like Overpass all that much, but that's just me, so I'll stay out of this one and let the people talk. This map is really all about your positioning and how well you can play around the unique map design. Utility is important, but it's about knowing the map more so than others. This is echoed a lot throughout the responses and really sums up what most people love about Overpass. Even though I don't really like playing the map, I respect that the map is very balanced and very fun to watch in professional play. Some of you might be surprised to see that Mirage has taken the number 3 spot on this list with an average score of 3.679. Despite everyone arguing that Mirage is very outdated and stale, It is still the most played map in the game, and the Mirage fans certainly showed up to this poll. I think the survey's average opinion on this map is summed up by the comment, "baller map," an absolute classic but kind of static. People agree that the map's layout is good and it's very easy to learn, but those factors mean that the map is played more than any other map in the game and is thus a bit boring. I feel that Mirage's popularity will only increase once the remake is released, and if I ever do one of these videos in a few years, Mirage is a clear contender for the #1 spot. Everyone hates Mirage until it comes down to comparing it to some of the other maps in the game, and the reality is that Mirage is still a very good map. Number 2, with an average score of 3.854, jumping nearly 2 full decimal points ahead of number 3, is Nuke. I love that Nuke is this high. Right now, for me, Nuke is the perfect map in the professional pool. Despite being at number 2, Nuke has the highest number of 5 out of 5s of any map. One responder says that Nuke is so unique, it's the only map with 2 bomb sites stacked on top of each other. It has an outside for long-ranged fights and an inside for closer fights. So fun to watch, has in my opinion almost 0 flaws. I'd say that honestly most people echoed this opinion in the written responses. The biggest complaint that I see about the map is how bad it has become in lower ranked matchmaking, with people trying to mimic Franz J. Number 1, going up another full decimal point with an average score of 3.947 is, to absolutely nobody's surprise, Inferno. Inferno has been the gold standard of CS maps for the past few years. Over 70% of the votes for Inferno were either 4s or 5s. Inferno is a great all-around map. It just works. That sums up a lot about what was said on Inferno. The complaints for the map focus mainly on how the sites can be tough to retake and how if you have bad teammates it can be tough, and this is true, but these are more issues with Counter-Strike as a game than they are with Inferno as a map. Complaints were few and far between with Inferno though, so I don't want to focus too much on them. Right now, Inferno is Counter-Strike. There's a couple of messages that we can take away from the results of this survey. For one, the CS player base can be a lot more nuanced in their tastes than we thought. Nuke being the second highest ranked map is a really good thing for CS. There was a time when the general community only really liked flat 3-lane maps. Now we're at a point where both Overpass and Nuke placed within the top 5, and Vertigo cracked the top 7. All of these weird, intensely vertical maps are very different from both each other and the other maps in the pool. The fact that over time these maps are becoming more popular proves that the CS player base is not opposed to change and actually has been embracing it for a little while now. Another takeaway from this is that Nuke and Inferno are far and away the community's favorite maps right now. This makes sense as these maps are both very good casually and competitively. The question is, what's the next map to crack into that top 3? I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments. But the thing that really surprised me is that the majority of maps playable and competitive, especially when you don't factor in hostage maps, are overall liked by the community. I think that this is just mostly due to the fact that we like the game. I think that CS is leagues ahead of most competitive FPS games when it comes to pure map design. While I think that other games have absolutely nailed maps for purely casual experience, like the older Call of Duty games and Overwatch, but when it comes to maps that work competitively and casually at the same time, CS is unrivaled. 20 years of map design does that. Thanks for watching.